All right, let's go. Let's get back in there.
Just days after the release of his song Levels, there was a sudden announcement that India's AAP government had implemented a new law. On the 27th of May, the party had mysteriously revoked Sidhu Moosewala's personal security team due to a new law aiming to stop VIP treatment. This cut removed the security of 424 prominent personalities in India, including politicians, retired police officers, and religious leaders. The government widely publicized this move, calling it a step towards ending VIP culture. Many AAP leaders also shared on social media the names of the 424 people affected. So not only had they removed the security of a number of high-risk people, likely with serious threats against them, but they then told the whole world that these people no longer had security. The government pretty much gave the drop on Sidhu. This security removal left Sidhu vulnerable and unprotected to imminent threats, essentially leaving him to fend for himself. And just 2 days after this law was implemented, one of the darkest days in modern Punjabi history would strike, as Sidhu Moosewala would finally be caught by his enemies. The day started like any other. Sidhu was in his hometown of Musa. He had planned to visit the nearby Jawahar K village to visit his aunt. This is a small village in the Mansa district, located just 1 kilometer west from the district headquarters in Mansa, so it was fairly close to Sidhu's house, around a 20-minute drive. Sidhu would leave his home in Musa around 4:30 in the afternoon with his neighbor Govinder Singh and his cousin Gurpreet Singh. The trio would travel in Sidhu's Mahindra Thar SUV. Sadly, just like the song released weeks prior, this drive would indeed be Sidhu's last ride. As mentioned earlier, Sidhu's security team had been taken away by the government due to the new law against VIP culture, a direct decision by the AAP party, the party he'd fought with and lost to at the election. However, Sidhu's family still had options and would often hire members of the Punjabi police to patrol with them armed. However, for some reason, that day he chose not to take them on that trip, likely due to the fact that Sidhu was reported as saying that he was only traveling close by to where his auntie lived. He probably thought that armed guards weren't necessary for such a regular trip in his local area. In CCTV footage from outside Sidhu's house, we can then see the moment he left the property, at which point he was immediately swarmed by fans who wanted to take pictures. But it would turn out one of these people was not a fan. Instead, they were an affiliate of the Bishnoi gang, using this opportunity to check if Sidhu was protected and drop his location.
Here is the single biggest piece of CCTV evidence that will turn the Moosewala murder probe on its head. India Today has now exclusively accessed the images of gangster recce on singer Sidhu Moosewala just 10 minutes before he was gunned down. The images show the informants of gangsters taking selfies near Moosewala's Thar SUV and then in a very clandestine fashion tipping off gangsters awaiting to pull the trigger. The informants told gangsters that Moosewala had left his home. After the tip-off over Moosewala's movement, the killers had started tailing Moosewala. The contract killers used two cars, a Bolero SUV and a Corolla sedan, to gun down the singer.
At this point, the members of the gang were aware that he had no security and no bulletproof vehicle. The member that spotted Sidhu outside of his home would allegedly dial up a team of nearby shooters, giving them the go-ahead to pursue the car, the Mahindra Thar SUV that they identified Sidhu would be driving in. The group of assailants allegedly were in touch with Goldie Bra and other affiliates of the Bishnoi gang, had apparently been tracking Sidhu's location for days and would follow him in a two-car convoy. They followed behind Sidhu from his village until the SUV eventually entered Jahark. The group of hitmen were traveling in a Toyota Corolla and a white Bolero SUV. The shooters would use fake license plates on their vehicles, clearly showing that the attack was planned out and they wished to cover their tracks. Soon after entering the village, Sidhu approached a sharp bend around 8 kilometers from his aunt's house, where the shooters quickly sped up to get close to Sidhu's car. And just after turning out of sight from the CCTV camera, the shooters in the white Corolla followed closely behind and opened fire. The first shots reportedly hit the rear end of Sidhu's car, to which he returned fire from his licensed pistol. According to the two passengers in the car, Sidhu stuck to his warrior persona and managed to shoot back at the assailants with his pistol, but ultimately this wouldn't be enough to save his life. After the shootout between Sidhu and the occupants of the Corolla, the Bolero SUV overtook Sidhu's car and the occupants begun firing at him with automatic weapons, and the shooters would fire 30 shots indiscriminately into Sidhu's car, specifically with an AN-94 rifle, which are pretty rare in Punjab. Around 19 bullets would hit Sidhu in his head, legs, abdomen and chest, with shots even piercing his lungs and his liver. Both Sidhu's cousin and neighbor were injured in the attack, but most bullets were directed at Sidhu personally. The others were quickly taken to hospital, but Sidhu's wounds had already proved fatal on the scene. A later autopsy report would find that Sidhu had died within 15 minutes of the attack, but to make matters worse, immediately after the shooting stopped, residents of the village would come out to investigate the commotion, arriving to witness a shocking sight no one would have ever expected. The country's biggest gangster rapper and nearly politician riddled with bullets all throughout his body and no security in sight. Soon, harrowing videos will begin to circulate online of people who had arrived at the scene filming Sidhu covered in bullet holes. Heartbreakingly, even his sacred turban was removed by bystanders who were trying to hold up his lifeless body. Almost immediately, news of Sidhu's murder would spread like wildfire and was reported to masses in India and all over the world. The Chief Minister of Police would take to Twitter to share that none of the perpetrators of this crime would be spared, but the same question would be heard all over the world. Why would anybody do this? In such a brash daylight attack, India's most prolific star was gunned down, with this being broadcast for the whole world to see. The very same day, police believed they had a lead. Police Chief V.K. Barra made a statement blaming a Canada-based gangster. Sidhu's family immediately pushed back against the police's comments, as they believed it linked Sidhu unfairly to gangs and organised crime. They believed that there was more to the merciless assassination than just a mere display of gang warfare, as Sidhu's family believed that the police had quickly tried to piece together a story without properly investigating. The next day, the Chief of Police was made to clarify his statement and specified that he never said Sidhu was a gangster or had any specific affiliations. But the Chief of Police was correct, as just 1 hour after Sidhu's murder, it was clear where to point the finger. Goldie Bra, associate of Lawrence Bishnoi and prominent member of the Bishnoi gang, made a post to Facebook, essentially claiming direct responsibility for the murder. Goldie was the original friend of Lawrence Bishnoi and was the man that was shooting at his rivals in the college elections. Goldie, real name Satinderjit Singh, made a post claiming that he had put the hit out on Sidhu and outlined his exact reasoning for this. In the post, he would claim that Sidhu had been involved in the murders of 3 of his friends, suggesting that the police had been protecting him because of his fame and power. The post roughly translates to this: I, along with Sachin Bishnoi, Dataramwale, Lawrence Bishnoi Group, take responsibility for the killing of Sidhu Moosewala. His name came up in connection with the murder of Vicky Midakera and Gulal Bra, and despite this, the police did nothing. Now, this post would show that Sidhu Moosewala had in fact been placed into the centre of a gang rivalry and was indeed murdered as a plot to avenge another murdered politician, Vicky Midakera. Vikramjit Singh, aka Vicky Midakera, was a youth Akali Dal leader. This is a Sikh-centric political party within India and is the second oldest party after Congress. Vicky was a resident of Midakera village in Bathinda district, and just like Sidhu Moosewala, he used the name of his village as his surname. He would eventually move to Chandigarh to pursue his college education, where he attended the DAV college. Sources say that he had supported Lawrence Bishnoi during his run when he was contesting as a student leader of Students' Organisations of Punjab University at DAV college. Now, Vicky had no criminal history other than a first information report registered against him at Chandigarh police station in 2020. Vicky was actually named as a member of the Bishnoi gang, and he was alleged to have been providing logistic supports to some of the members. These affiliations may well have cost Vicky his life, as on the 7th of August 2021, Vicky Midakera was shot dead in a broad daylight assassination that was caught on surveillance camera. Vicky, aged 33 at the time, was entering his car when 2 masked shooters approached from the left side, unloading their pistols into him at close range. Initially, Vicky runs out of sight from the cameras, where he's then followed and shot dead right by the wall of a local community centre. This would explain his connection to Goldie Bra and a clear motive to kill Sidhu as vengeance for this murder, but many people were confused as to why Sidhu was specifically targeted in this incident. One explanation could be Sidhu's affiliation to their rivals, the Bambiya gang, as shortly after Vicky's murder, the Bambiya gang had taken full responsibility for the killing. And as mentioned, earlier in 2020, Sidhu had released that song with singer Amrit Man, Bambiya Bol, a song praising the Bishnoi's main ops that was seen as escalating the rivalry. Here he is directly referencing the enemies of the Bambiya gang, saying that he will break their bones and referring to murder. The song itself was believed to have had a deeper meaning, paying tribute to the slain gangster Davinder Bambiya that started the gang. Lawrence Bishnoi at the time was jailed in Delhi's Tihar prison, and he's actually been in prison since 2017 due to various cases. But it appears that he's still been calling shots from behind bars, as during an interrogation with the police, he would apparently shed light onto the motive in Sidhu's murder, as he was called in for an interview after Sidhu was killed. Bishnoi himself believed that Moosewala had provoked the gang through his lyrics, eulogizing their rivals in the Bambiya gang with his song. Lawrence Bishnoi said that with that song, Bambiya Bol, Sidhu had dared them to attack him in the open. However, the issue runs even deeper than these affiliations and that song, as after Vicky Midakera was murdered, the police had named one of Sidhu's managers, Shaganpreet Singh, as a main conspirator in the murder. 1 month after Sidhu was killed, Shaganpreet was seeking protection from the courts due to threats made against him by the Bishnois and Goldie Bra too. In response to his application, the Punjab police claimed that there was sufficient evidence that places Sidhu's manager as the main conspirator in Vicky Midakera's murder. Allegedly, Shaganpreet Singh had met with 2 others at a Sikh temple and asked them to carry out the murder of Vicky Midakera. The shooters also claimed that Shaganpreet arranged for them to stay at his flat in Karar. However, it was found by the investigative agency that there was no further corroborative evidence that showed any communication between Shaganpreet and the co-accused. Furthermore, Shaganpreet added that he has no connection with the Bambiya gang, claiming that he's been targeted for no reason. But coincidentally, soon after Midakera's murder, Shaganpreet had fled to Australia. But regardless of Shaganpreet's involvement, that murder plot was very extensive. The hit was called from several members and associates of the Bambiya gang, like Lucky Patial, who was behind bars in an Armenian jail, apparently sending a message to another fugitive named Gandhi who was on the run in Malaysia. Gandhi had planned and organized the hit, providing weapons and logistical support, and to this day that case is still unsolved and has never gone to trial, likely due to the fact that the main perpetrators are all locked away in various foreign prisons. But regardless, Goldie Bra and the Bishnoi gang felt betrayed by the system and felt that Mudakira's murder went unpunished. So they would choose the target of their retaliation to be Sidhu Moosewala, the most famous gangster rapper who had already dropped a song publicly shouting out the gang that had killed their friend. So in the following days after May the 29th, police would desperately try and piece together the evidence and find the fleeing group of shooters that killed Sidhu. And by early June, that investigation was well underway, with one single piece of evidence blowing the entire case wide open and leading the police on a cat and mouse chase of the shooters all across India. The first piece of evidence was found 13 kilometers away from the scene of the crime in the Kayala village. This was the abandoned Bolero SUV used in the shooting that overtook Sidhu. Inside the car was a gas station receipt. This receipt was addressed to Fatehabad in the Haryana district, which is around 320 kilometers south of the Punjab region. On the same day, security footage was obtained by local police from the gas station in Haryana. The footage would show the Bolero SUV's movement, showing it going to the gas station and filling up. After investigating the footage further, police managed to identify a suspect as the shooter in the case, Mr. Priyawarat Fauji and a 19-year-old named Ankit Sirsa from the Sonipat village. Both were identified as suspected shooters, and on the 6th of June, police recovered another one of the vehicles used by the shooters. It was found that the killers actually used another car, an Alto, which was robbed at gunpoint by the assailants in the Corolla. At a certain point, they chose to swap and abandon the Corolla as it got damaged in the incident and broke down. Ultimately, the Corolla was found the day after Sidhu's murder in the Moga district. It was abandoned in a field with the number plates removed, and there were no weapons or further evidence found in that car. But the Alto that they'd gotten into after abandoning the Corolla was found by tracing the route of the car through CCTV footage, which ultimately led to 5 arrests. And articles were later written about how this banged up getaway car would ultimately be the thing that led the police to the culprits. After these major breakthroughs, the Indian police then embarked on a major 21-day operation to capture the killers, starting on the 13th of June 2022. The operation began when police used technical surveillance to establish that some of the shooters were in the Gujarat region, which is over 1,100 kilometers south from Punjab. Investigators were able to narrow down their search to a 3.5-mile radius in the Mundrapur area, which eventually led them to Baroi village. Baroi is around 2 kilometers from the local city with a population of around 15,000 people. Therefore, seeking out the killers would prove to be more difficult than assumed in such a rural village. It was found that the suspects had rented a room in Baroi using fake IDs. They posed as migrant workers because the local ports would often see lots of men from different regions coming over for work. The investigators were then able to narrow down their search to local rooms that had been rented recently. Investigators were also aware of the physical profile of their suspects, such as their height and build. Now, interestingly, average height actually differs from region to region in India due to the sheer size of the country. People from certain areas are just taller than other people from other areas. It's a thing. So the team of investigators was struggling to pin down the single room in the village that the gang were hiding out in because they were working from a tower. So they chose to patrol the area on scooters, posing as port workers themselves. The authorities were already aware that the suspects were allegedly running an illegal liquor business. Due to Gujarat being a dry state, this fact helped the investigators locate one of the businesses catering to workers in Baroi and the nearby areas. The police then found out that the supply of liquor was being supplied from zones such as Sonipat, which is actually where those 2 shooters that were arrested already were originally from. A few days later, the police received a tip from a family living in close proximity to 3 suspicious men all renting a room together. Sadly, at this point, no arrests were made due to the evidence not being strong enough. Eventually, the police would search the accommodation complex and look specifically for anyone who looked out of place. At that point, they noticed 3 men sitting on a charpai cot, but they were all facing away from the police. However, the police would then notice that the position of the men seemed peculiar for that region of India. The men were sat with one leg folded and the other bent from the knee, which the investigators knew was a style of sitting particular to the Haryana region. The team would also spot that one of the shooters was unusually tall for the area, standing at around 6 feet, as well as having a lighter complexion than the other people around. The third suspect was then spotted coming out of another room, having just bought enough milk for 3 people. As Priyavrat and Kashish had already been spotted in the CCTV from the fuel station, the police had a positive ID and would arrest these men on the spot. They ended up jumping the walls apprehending Keshav, and after finding the other 2 suspects inside the room and catching them, after questioning, it would appear that Keshav had warned the other members about wearing a mask at all times, and he was seemingly aware that they had already all been spotted on CCTV. The 21-day operation proved successful, and the arrest of the shooters swiftly made Indian news.
इस हत्याकांड में खाली मिली तो एक चीज उसने गुजरात में हो गया तो विजय में भेजी गई और उसके बाद जो 3
After these arrests were made, the case was getting closer to being fully solved, as suspects shared the details on their communications and planning throughout the whole job. The gang made sure never to call each other and would only speak using open Wi-Fi networks or using dongles, which caused a major challenge for the police to pin down their locations initially. They were apparently all in touch with Goldie Bra, who was in Canada at this point, organising the whole ordeal. Bra would give instructions and locations of where to hide, and the police would eventually find out that initially 7 of the suspects had lived in that room in the Barrow village, but 4 left in the first week of June, narrowly avoiding arrest. After these 3 arrests, the police moved on to the next targets, Ankit Sirsa and Sachin Biwani. They believed that the 2 were in Chandigarh due to cell phone data. They knew that the police were tracing them, and they moved incredibly cautiously when using their phones, only switching them on for limited time after using public transport and changing their location each time, limiting the scope for the police to trace their whereabouts. But eventually, the pair were traced to a bus station in Delhi on the 3rd of July, where they were arrested. Ankit Sirsa was just 19 years old, and when investigating the suspects' phones, the police found an image of Ankit Sirsa posing with his pistol, sat behind a collection of bullets that spelt out the name Moosewala, with newspaper headlines later describing him as a desperate shooter. It was found that Sirsa fired 6 rounds at Sidhu from 2 pistols, and he had been the one who had got closest to the rapper in the shooting. But that image of him with the bullets wasn't the only damning evidence found on their phones, as a video from the day of the shooting was later brought to light, showing that the gang of shooters sat together in their car, posing with the pistols, waving the murder weapons around, proudly laughing about the situation. Allegedly, this video had been sent to Goldie Bra. The video was even posted and deleted to Sirsa's Instagram account, a classic example of how self-snitching exists even in India.
These are the attackers of the late Punjabi singer Sidhu Moosewala. In a video, they can be seen celebrating after the murder. The shooters can be seen smiling and waving their guns in front of the camera. 5 people have been seen in this car, and this video has been recovered from one of the shooters. The shooter, who is sitting in the front seat of the car in a blue t-shirt, is Priyavarta Fauji, while the other one in the back seat wearing a checked shirt is Ankit. The video has been recovered from him. Ankit was one of the shooters involved in the killing of Punjabi singer Sidhu Moosewala. He has now been arrested by the special cell of Delhi police along with his accomplice from a terminal in Delhi. The other shooter who is being arrested is Sachin Biwani. He took the responsibility for harboring 4 of the shooters in the Sidhu Moosewala case.
The following month, further images of the shooters were shared to the public, with the group apparently enjoying a day out to the beach together and posing for the cameras apparently in celebration of pulling off the murder. Finally, the main perpetrators in Sidhu's murder had all been identified, with some of them being arrested. And over the following months, several encounters would go down between the Bishnoi gang and the police, such as the 4-hour-long standoff with Punjab police that resulted in a group being killed, which included others that had apparently been involved in the murder of Sidhu. And there would be multiple Bishnoi associates arrested internationally. 2 more suspects in Sidhu's murder were arrested in Kenya and Azerbaijan. But even more crazy, in 2023, India Today managed to interview Goldie Bra himself, where he still admits to having had Sidhu killed.
I'm going to cut across to this very breaking news. In fact, Goldie Bra, when speaking to India Today, has also spoken about Moosewala, Sidhu Moosewala. He's admitted that he was the one who got Sidhu Moosewala killed. Gangster Goldie Bra's chilling confessions here, coming part 2, where he says in a big exclusive conversation to India Today that he has killed singer Sidhu Moosewala. This is Goldie Bra's confession number 2, where Bra has said, yes, I did kill Sidhu Moosewala. Goldie Bra further confirming that Sidhu enjoyed unnecessary power and I wanted to teach him a lesson and therefore I got him killed. This is Goldie Bra's confession, a big confession coming in. Right when Sidhu Moosewala was murdered itself, it was Goldie Bra who claimed that attack. He did claim the murder itself, saying that he takes responsibility for it.
During the interview, Goldie described Sidhu as an egotistic, spoiled person who had more money and power than necessary, suggesting that he had misused his influence on the police. Bra said that his gang thought it was necessary to teach Sidhu a lesson because he did personal harm to them and that his mistakes were unforgivable.
Yes, he was an egoistic, spoiled person who had more than necessary money, who had more than necessary political power, police power, which was misused. It was necessary to teach him a lesson. He was taught a lesson, that's all. Yes, he has done some personal harm to us. He has made such mistakes which were not worthy of forgiveness.
Despite many of the actual shooters on the hit being captured or killed by the police, the self-professed mastermind of the hit, Goldie Bra, remains free and on the run from murder charges, with rumours as recent as May 2024 that he might have been gunned down in California. But these rumours turned out not to be true, and to this day, he still remains at large.
What?
It's crazy.
What?
Just like many other prolific legends of the rap game, Sidhu Moosewala foreshadowed his own death in countless lyrics and videos, a creepy trend that presents way too many examples in the modern music industry. Countless rappers like XXXTentacion have depicted their own funerals in music videos, from Mac Miller to Mo3, and of course Tupac, one of Sidhu's biggest inspirations, as well as his main rival Biggie, both gunned down in their cars after a turbulent beef, made songs and albums themed after their impending deaths. Fans were quick to note that the date of Sidhu's murder, the 29th of May, echoed the title of one of his most famous songs, 295. They noted that in the eerily titled track The Last Ride, Sidhu had sung about being laid to rest in his youth. His latest album at the time, Moose Tape, contained several references to dying young and the constant threat of being gunned down. These seemingly symbolic coincidences and going out in a dramatic shooting added a halo of greatness around Sidhu, cementing his legacy as an icon, just like many of the great artists who sadly lose their lives way too young. Unfortunately, Sidhu will never be able to live out his full potential, but he left behind a legacy that would never be forgotten. Sidhu stood for far more than just fame and fortune. He chose to stand up for his people, protesting against corruption, and even wanted to run in politics to better the life of his neighbours. But he was also bridging the gap between the East and the West. He truly wanted to change his country, perhaps a little too much. Adding that to the fact that he used his music to get mixed up in a gang conflict ultimately made him the target of an act of vengeance, putting an early end to an incredible life full of potential. Perhaps had he not gone head to head with the politicians, he might not have lost his protection, and maybe he would have had security to shoot back that day. This situation is much deeper than meets the eye, and it's clear that Sidhu's revolutionary spirit meant that a lot of people wanted him dead, and no matter what, we know from his lyrics that he knew he wasn't going to survive. In the aftermath of Sidhu's death came support and grief from all over the world. Images of Sidhu's body was pictured as people paid their last respects before he was laid to rest. One viral video would even circulate showing the heartbreaking scene where his parents broke down over the casket, still struggling to process the loss of their beloved son. Sidhu's death touched people you wouldn't have even expected. Even from his long-time perceived enemy in music, Karan Aujla, would be seen crying on social media following the news, later releasing a tribute song. But it wasn't just Indian artists paying their respects to Sidhu, also some of the biggest artists in the entire world. Drake would pay respects to Sidhu on his OVO radio show Table for One, as well as wearing a t-shirt reading RIP Sidhu Moosewala, something that was later released to the public for sale. Here in the UK, YouTube sensation KSI would also be seen wearing a t-shirt commemorating Sidhu and honouring his first album PBX1. African giant and Afrobeats legend Burna Boy would also share his heartbreak after Sidhu passing, as he was seen breaking down on stage while singing RIP Sidhu Moosewala and copying Sidhu's signature thigh slap. Burna Boy also mentioned Sidhu on his appearance on the hip-hop podcast $1 Million Worth of Game, showing that him and Sidhu had actually planned to release a joint mixtape.
Yeah, that's kind of the same thing I felt with rest in peace Sidhu Moosewala, who just died. He was like a legend from India, you know, from Punjab, you know, and his music from the beginning, even before we got, you know, close and, you know, started working on a mixtape that might never come out now. Yeah, man, I just felt the music. I just felt like bruh, like I could have made this.
Right.
You know,
right.
Even if I don't even speak no Punjab or nothing, right. You feel me? Right. But I could literally sing most of the songs that I f with word for word.
Don't even know the language.
And I don't even know what it means.
Right.
You understand?
Right. What it just means is a great melody and a great beat.
Yeah.
And great
it talks
melodies.
to your soul.
Right.
It really talks to your soul. Like,
right.
Whatever it's telling your soul, whether it's good or bad, it's still talking to your soul.
Right.
You know?
And regardless of the language barriers, Sidhu's music was so strong, it resonated with Burna Boy deeply. He would actually visit Sidhu's parents' house in the UK, gifting them a painting of their son. Furthermore, UK drill rapper Tion Wayne, who collaborated with Sidhu on a couple of tracks, including Celebrity Killer, would pay homage to Sidhu in his own 2023 solo track, Healing. In the video, Tion visits Sidhu's house in Musa, surrounded by armed guards, and of course his famous tractors. The music video ends with a special tribute to Sidhu, reading Legends Never Die. However, Sidhu's death was sadly not only used to pay respects, as political parties in India attempted to use him as a tool to gain influence. In the Sangra Lok Sabha by-polls in 2022, the INC party proceeded to use Sidhu's image as a tool within their election campaigns. This move was objected to by Sidhu's family, who then proceeded to appeal for the party not to use their son's image and persona for political or personal gain. Regardless of all the accolades and influence Sidhu gained in his career, in the end, he was brutally murdered in broad daylight over the actions of other men that had nothing to do with him. His parents had lost lost their dear and only son, which is heartbreaking when considering the level of respect and affection that Sidhu showed his parents throughout his career, such as the time that he supported his mother in the Musa election, or releasing his own tribute song Dear Mama, just like Tupac did. Sadly, his parents, just like countless others, fell victim to their son being taken away by ruthless gangsters. And after his son's death, Sidhu's father requested fans via Instagram not to try and visit them in person, explaining that they have left their village for a couple of months after fans from all over the world have been visiting to give their condolences. But this wasn't the only issue that the family faced. Moosewala's father, Balkaur Singh, reported to the police that he had received a death threat from a Pakistani phone number. Soon after Sidhu's cremation, a statue would be erected in his honor at the same site, and his father, Balkaur Singh, would take the opportunity to voice his frustration at the government, asking in a Times of India interview why there's been no arrest of Goldie Bra. Sidhu's father also shed light on the Shaganpreet Singh, the manager who had allegedly gotten Sidhu targeted in the first place after arranging the murder of Vicky Midukera, claiming that he didn't realize that brothers would become enemies, and explaining that he would take their names and get to the bottom of things. But it seems that these bold public statements from Sidhu's father likely angered the Bishnoi gang who were responsible, and following this, with zero empathy for the family, they would issue a direct death threat towards Sidhu's father over his comments, saying that you and your son don't own the country and you can't give security to whoever you want. Sidhu's parents weren't the only ones heartbroken over Sidhu's murder, as fans from all over the world would pay their respects, detailing just how much the loss had affected them, and how Sidhu's music had even allowed themselves to get closer to their own culture. One fan would give a detailed breakdown as to why Sidhu was so beloved, even mentioning how people were taking the loss as if they had lost one of their own family members. But although Sidhu was gone, his momentum was far from over, and he still had a locker of unreleased songs and powerful messages, such as SYL, a song which was taken down 3 days after its original upload due to its controversial and anti-government nature, yet it still managed to go on to amass 22 million views. Thankfully, it was still reinstated and is available today. After his death, Sidhu's music posthumously charted in numerous countries, taking his already enormous influence to new highs. In April 2023, Steel Bangles also released a posthumous song from Sidhu featuring Burna Boy. The song's a beautiful tribute to Sidhu and explains the importance of his name, with Merana meaning my name. The video features multiple shots honoring Sidhu, such as Drake wearing the RIP Sidhu shirt, as well as a field of his beloved tractors, and his face appearing in the clouds. Sidhu left behind a beautiful legacy and was a great example and role model for the Punjabi Jat people. Although his family faced massive amounts of trauma and backlash following Sidhu's death, recently the family shared an incredible surprise to the world in March 2024. 2 years after Sidhu's murder, they had delivered a new son. Through the process of IVF, the parents were blessed with a newborn child, even at such a late stage in life, which elated Sidhu fans across the world, who began claiming Sidhu is back. And it appears that they might be right, as the family aptly named their newborn son that same iconic name, Shubdeep Singh Sidhu, even sharing an image of the newborn son on social media, with a caption saying that this child was blessed by the millions of souls who already loved Sidhu. Balkaur Singh claimed that the son he lost, Sidhu, has now come back to him, and that finally the family had some positive news. Unfortunately, the Indian government still didn't let up on the family. Seemingly, in fear of the revolutionary spirit of a newborn child, they would begin harassing the couple, ordering them to prove the legitimacy of the birth due to their age and the restrictive IVF rules that exist in India. In one video released to social media, Sidhu's father pushes back against the police for harassing him, requesting that the government allow the treatment to get completed before he's called upon to prove the legitimacy of the child. For now, it seems that the family have been left to raise their newborn child in peace, but unfortunately they lost their son, and the world lost an incredible artist and radical thinker when Sidhu Moosewala passed. But just like the popular saying that emerged following Sidhu's death, legends never die, and that revolutionary spirit that Sidhu put into his music and the hearts of every Jat from Musa and beyond will live forever. So I just want to end this video by saying rest in peace to one of the most interesting and incredible artists the world has ever experienced. I enjoyed learning all about Sidhu Moosewala, and I hope you did too. Thank you for watching, and until next time, peace out.
Wow. So they named the baby.
Right. I didn't know that. I did not know that part. Ooh.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Okay. Isn't that something?
What's the name? Did it say? How you spell the name?
Let's see. Where did they say it at exactly? There it is. Okay.
Where?
Okay, so it must be coming up right
after. The process of IVF, the parents were blessed with a newborn child, even at such a late stage in life, which elated Sidhu fans across the world, who began claiming Sidhu was back. And it appears that they might be right, as the family aptly named their newborn son that same iconic name,
Shub. So that's crazy that the singer we like name is Shub. That's cool. His name. I wonder, is that his real name or is that his rap name?
I don't know, but
Shub. That's cool, but. That's crazy, man. It's a lot going on. So you don't know who. Well, even though they took What you say when you take the you say it's you that did the killing? You take
They took. I mean, I won't say credit, but they took,
basically it is. They took the credit for
right. And so right now, that's what I wanted to get into. Okay, because people still saying the government had something to do with it. It was a government killing.
Could be,
but and that still don't mean they don't. Even if the gang did it, that don't mean the government did. They didn't get together and allow it to happen at the same time. Oh, we're gonna take security from them on this particular day. Y'all need to set y'all men up. Whatever y'all trying to do, it's y'all time frame.
They gave him to do it, and then all them took the fall, but him.
And he's somewhere. Where was he at when he did the phone call? That's what I wanted to know. He's still free, but he out here doing phone calls and interviews.
I don't know where he at.
But right, okay, so whether it was the gang that did it, a gang did it, but did the government play a role in it? Because this all just so happened to be, but they did take the security from 400 people.
And then they broadcasted.
And they broadcasted it. So that's what I'm saying. So and was anybody else killed besides him during that time who had security taken away from him? It's just him.
Probably not.
Right? So it's like, was it really a setup?
Had his own security.
But he said he left without his security. They said he left without his security because he was only going down the road to his auntie house. So he left his 2 security people at home and went with his cousins. So, you know, you think you're making a family trip, and that's what them people's out there waiting outside the house to make location drops. Mm-hmm. Oh, this was like crazy. This was a story right here.
This should be made into a movie.
It should. They should do a movie about Moose. Wow. Then the parents have a baby.
Trap Lord Ross got all these stories. King Von, Tay Savage. Like, he should make movies out of it. Really.
Well, for sure. This one is very interesting. Very interesting how this all played out. And then he had a baby. Named the baby the same name. We say Moose back. That is crazy.
Moose is back. She'll deep sing Sidhu. But hey, thank y'all for watching this whole thing.
Wow.
Y'all like, subscribe.
We learned a lot from this. Even though we've been doing his videos.
I know Sikhs was mad at him too. That's crazy too.
This was good. Good one.